Hi everyone, hope you guys are all having a great day today. Today's video, I'm going to cover the whole entire market in terms of Dow Jones, Nasdaq, and S&P 500, including the economic calendar. Now I do post these videos daily, so I highly encourage you to double check the latest videos on X and YouTube so that way you get the most up-to-date information. And before I get to the technical analysis portion, I'm going to go over the economic calendar. Now in terms of this week, it is a pretty important week. Not only for tomorrow, we have Jerome Powell speaking and having a testimony to the House. But the thing is, though, in terms of Thursday and Friday, we have CPI, so inflation numbers, and PPI numbers on Friday, inflation numbers as well. So that's Thursday and Friday. But most importantly, to give out the information for tomorrow, Wednesday, July 10th, 2024, 10 a.m., we have wholesale inventories, as well as Fed Chair Powell testimony to the House. And at 2:30 p.m., we have Chicago Fed President Austan Goolsbee and Fed Governor Michelle Bowman at Fed event on childcare industry. And at 7:30 p.m., we have Fed Governor Lisa Cook speaks as well. Again, most important things that are coming up this week is for Thursday CPI inflation numbers and PPI inflation numbers as well. Now, in terms of the movement for the market, for the S&P 500 and Nasdaq, they're kind of showing a slowdown. The numbers I gave yesterday, they held true in terms of the upper limits, but pretty much slowing down, consolidating, essentially anticipating and waiting for Thursday and Friday inflation numbers. The volatility index is low. You can see it's at 12.5 right now. So not expecting any major drops. Overall, pointing to the upside for the S&P and Nasdaq. But again, it's a slowdown / consolidation like we kind of saw today, more towards the end of the week. Now for the Dow Jones, kind of strange. By the way, I'm basing this off the MACD lines and what I'm seeing on the charts. For the Dow Jones, it's showing downside, which is kind of strange. So a little bit against from the S&P and Nasdaq. I would show everything that I've already looked at, but yesterday's video when I was going through everything, it kind of seemed a little bit boring. So I don't feel like it's necessary to go through them all. But I'm going to show the support and resistance levels nonetheless. Now for the, I'm going to go through the S&P 500. So specifically SPY, which is an ETF for the S&P 500. And the upper limits, well, actually, before I get to that, we are at $555.82. And the upper limit that we saw today, just like I said yesterday, it's 557, showing pretty much for the most part. And we hit 557 and some change, so 18 cents. That is still the upper limit. And it's going to be quite difficult to pass it, especially since the indications are pretty much showing a little bit of a slowdown / drop / consolidation. So we will pass it because in terms of the longer term, it is showing more of the upside. But the problem is I think the markets are waiting for inflation numbers first, and then we'll start moving up to the upside. So for the time being, the upper limit 557 is going to still be holding true and some change. And then the lower limits in terms of support, we're looking at 555 and some change. And then with the moving average, 554 and some change. With the ballpark, 554 is going to hold us quite a bit, I would say, in my opinion. Because if you just cut through right about here, you can see there's resistance and support with the moving average, so 554 and some change on the lower end and the higher end. Will we go lower than that? I don't think so, just because the volatility index is quite low too. But the next level will be 553 and some change. And then pretty much if the inflation numbers are worse than expected, this is not necessarily for the whole entire day tomorrow. It could be within the week. We could drop down to this lower level of 550 and some change. Now, again, we're at 555 and some change, but the 550, the reason why I'm stating that is we saw there was resistance around that price point 2 times, right about here, and support right about here. I'll zoom in, so drop support plus the moving average right about here. So 550 and some change. And then in case you're interested for the next support, not next support level, but the next moving average, I wouldn't say this is the next support level, but it's about 547 and some change. Now for Nasdaq, which I'm going to be looking at the ETF QQQ, which is the same thing, essentially just different ratios for the prices. We're at 497 and some change. The upper limit, like I said yesterday, is 500, and we almost got to, we got 500 and some change. So that's still going to be the upper limit. Again, the nature of it, given how the MACD lines and so on and so forth are somewhat pointing to the downside / consolidating. Again, still overall to the upside. It's just a slowdown until inflation numbers, it looks like. At least that's what it looks like for the most part. So the support level we're looking at, and we kind of saw it today too as well, it's pretty much around the ballpark of 496 and some change, which collides with the moving average and consolidation phase right about here. Then the next price point is about 495, and then essentially could drop down to this range right about here, which is about 490 all the way down to 489. So 489 with the moving average, and then the 490 in terms of support level right about here, consolidating support. Will we go lower? I don't think so. personally. That's just my opinion. Like always, by the way, this is just my opinion, so please do own due diligence and research before buying and selling. But that's the case. Now, if you're looking at this price point right about here in terms of support, that's 486 and some change. That's based off resistance right about here 2 times. I think there was a consolidation, small bump right there, resistance and consolidation right about here. But I don't think that we're going to be seeing that anyway for the time being. Now for the Dow Jones, we have this upward trend resistance line dating back since 2021, and then upward trend resistance line, and then upward trend support level dating back since April of 2024. Now, again, it is pointing to the downside. Nothing drastic in my opinion, because past the short-term downside, longer term is still pointing to the upside, and the volatility index is low. And since Nasdaq and S&P 500 is more pointing to the upside, even though it's right now in the consolidation pointing downside for the time being, but still it's pointing to the upside further out versus the Dow Jones. Not further out, but sooner rather than later versus the Dow Jones. Dow Jones is kind of showing more downside in the more near and a little bit further out future kind of thing. So I'm expecting pretty much, even though it's pointing to the downside, more of consolidation phase, because I don't expect the inflation numbers to be that bad. So we still have that limit that I mentioned before about the 39. So actually, wait, let me cover this. So we're at 39,291 points, and the limit is still holding true about 39,600 to 650 points. We saw that even today, 650 spiked up, or if not today, yesterday. And then the next limit, in case it does pass it, like I stated before, about 39,900 points. And then that's based off of this price points right about here. We spiked up 1, 2, and then 3 times to it, and then kind of bounced off as support right about there too. So support as well. But then to the downside, I'm expecting these moving averages to hold true. So the first moving average we could rely on support is about $39,244 or 44 points. Then 39,140 points, give or take. Again, these moving averages do move too, so ballpark basically. And then 38,900 points, give or take. The 38,900 points is a support level on its own anyway, besides the moving average. But that's basically what I'm expecting. I don't expect anything lower personally. But that's basically it for today's video. If you did find it helpful, consider dropping a like. It does help with the channel, so thank you so much for that. I do appreciate it. And I do post these videos daily, so consider subscribing so you'll be notified when I do upload them. Thanks again for watching. I appreciate it. And that's basically it. See you guys in the next video. Take care. Peace.